This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay. And on today's episode, my guest is Melissa Ann Skeet, aka Skeet Fighter on Instagram. Make sure you go check her out and follow her. She's an ultra trail skater who raises awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous people, as well as promotes health, wellness, and healing through her skating. And fun fact, Melissa has an adult coloring book which is available on Amazon. And look, I have some colored pencils right here. So I'm definitely going to be buying that book. um, Melissa also has an upcoming tour that she's doing in July, which will take place. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later, but it's happening in July, and she's going to tell us all about it. But welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being a guest. How are you doing? How's the weather where you are?
Well, I first of all, thank you for having me on. I am doing fantastic, and the weather here actually, surprisingly, is super nice. The sunshine is out and beautifying the area. I'm in Washington State on the west area, so it's like whenever I explain to people about what the weather is like here, I'm like, it's kind of like resting bitch face. Where like, you run into someone who has that resting bitch face, and when they smile, they have the most beautiful smile ever. So I see that, like, how what the West area is for Washington is when it finally shows its sparkling beauty, from the sunshine, because it's just always so gloomy and cloudy here. When that sunshine comes out, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is why I moved here." This is beautiful.
So are you originally from, so you're not originally from Washington?
No, I'm originally from Arizona, so northern part of Arizona. Grew up at the Grand Canyon National Park and then went to college, got my undergrad or did my undergrad at NAU, and then moved up north and lived in about 5 different states in the past 5 years actually. So I know.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Kind of happened so fast.
Okay, so before we get into the tour and the causes, let's talk a little bit more about your background and how Melissa became the skeet fighter. Like, how did we get here? How did it begin?
Yeah, so it started from roller derby, but how I started out in roller derby was so I'm in a profession of victim assistance, so I help victims of crime. So I've been doing it for over a decade. And I was a victim advocate. I called myself then a baby victim advocate because I thought I knew everything and I'm still learning. And I ran into this attorney, and she was like became my best friend at the time, and she always came into court, of course, wearing her business suit, and then she would have different color, like multicolored hair, and not, it was always in the corner, underneath the ear, like the earlobe. So she would have different colors, and then her fingernails would be different colors. I'm like, what does this lady do outside of work? So we worked on a couple cases together, and I asked her, I was like, hey, so what is it that you do, outside of your job? She's like, oh, I play roller derby. I'm like, whoa. So I didn't really know much about roller derby, but at that time, and then she told me, why don't you come to one of our bouts, aka games? So I said,
Mhm.
okay. Went to one of the games, and I was just thrown back how just how amazing these individuals are and how strong I saw them. And I remember when she came up to me to give me a hug after the game, and I was like, dude, you're a freaking badass. You're such a badass. And she looked like she had a suit of armor on. And she kept trying to get me to compete and to actually try out
Mhm.
for the league, the team. So I was like, no, I screwed up I'd had so many injuries back in the day because I played, a variety of different sports. And she's like, just do it. And like, so I did tryout. That's how I got into roller derby, and that's how I adopted the name Skeet Fighter, and it just stuck. And I use it, of course, for my platform and for my mission. So after that, it was an unexpected journey of what I would run into during this time, that I was a victim of domestic violence and almost lost my life in the hands of the abuser. And he, yeah, so that was a very, very dark time. And I feel like anybody who goes through a dark time always has a specific type of healing journey. So my unexpected healing journey was roller skating. And it was roller derby during that time, when I was competing. It was the family dynamics within this team that brought me back to life, that gave me so much energy that I lost. And they brought back that strength that abuser took from me. And that's where I felt more empowered, and I wanted to continue moving forward with skating. So I got into trail skating because I love being out in the outdoors. I would take my husky out for long hikes when she was a puppy. And I thought to myself, I love just jamming out to my music, getting on my skates, and just being out with the outdoors, with mountains, sunshine, trees, everything. And that started to really take a positive impact on my spirit, and my well-being, and my body, my mind, everything. And that's when I started to embark on this intense skate of roller skating 192 miles across the Navajo Nation back in 2021. And we did this within 7 days, about 6 to 7 days. Took a day off because we needed it. And that was to raise awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous persons. And that caught attention globally. I didn't think it would. And a documentary was created out of it. So anybody who's watching this can definitely check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. It was like a healing journey. It was my path, and it still is my healing journey and path. And it turned into a speaking, like just a huge speaking, like people would ask me to come out and speak for them. And they would ask me to tell my story from being a child, being around domestic violence as a child, growing up in that, to generational trauma, to almost losing my own life in the hands of an abuser in a very, very toxic relationship. And then some people expect, especially for Native Americans, or I don't want to say Native Americans, I want to say Native people. We need to get rid of that American part of it, but the Native people, that there is this stereotypical, like, negative outlook on us, where people think that we are supposed to be drug addicts or alcoholics. And a lot of Native people are going into that, negative realm because they have of the generational trauma. And that stems from the residential residential schools and boarding schools. And what happened within those schools was terrible. It was a lot of trauma, from sexual abuse to physical abuse. It was, children being killed by the staff. And all of this, like, my parents are survivors, as well as a lot of my family members. And this is where I started, as probably until my 30s, I started to identify these specific patterns from my childhood to my relationships as a teenager into adulthood, and seeing how it was mirroring parents' abuse, like how they were treating each other. And then it just, from there, I was able to share, not just to different individuals, like different atmospheres, but law enforcement, special agents, and nurses, to forensic interviewers, to advocates, train them and let them know I am a survivor of domestic violence, and this is what this looks like. This is how a victim during trauma responds. So
Mhm.
I use that as well, and I talk about that, and using my roller skates as part of my health, wellness, and healing. So within
Mhm.
the conferences, people are like, who's this individual whose title is "My roller skates have a story to tell"? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. And it's like the most very random topic that you can actually see within a conference that is about violence against women or violence against children, or it's just the most random thing ever until they sit in and they're like, oh, I know what this is
Mhm.
about. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you went through that. I'm happy that you made it out and you are a survivor. And your roller skates are, or is your therapy. It's therapeutic. And even I think when you were speaking, I was like, well, you know, when you go to those conferences, they may look at you kind of crazy, like, yeah, what is she doing? But y- you are letting people know that this was my outlet. What's yours? You know, and it might not be roller skating. It may be cycling. It may be yoga. It may be something else that they can do. You know, roller skating in a sense saved you. You know, that's how I
Exactly.
see it. And
Hmm. Yep.
I think that that's so cool. Did you roller skate before you, like, when you got introduced to it? Were you already roller skating, or is that something that you picked up to then join the league?
Well, it's funny because yeah, I'm sure. Like, it's funny. I tell people this all the time that I first started. I guess you can say skating through inline skating. I used to inline skate, yeah, a lot as a kid, and it was literally what I did every single day. It was one of those, "Mom, I wanna go outside and play." It was, "Mom, I wanna go outside and skate." And I would inline skate, rollerblade with one of my
Mhm.
friends, and we would go I ca when I think about it now, I'm just kind of like, "How the heck did I just go down these, like, intense steep hills like it was nothing?" I mean, I still have scars where I literally ate shit
Like, yeah.
and going down this really steep hill, and that's just where it started, the thrill of it. And I before roller skating, I never thought there was an actual, uh, sport where roller derby, existed basically. And
Mhm.
then when I got into roller skating, I always heard before getting into roller skating that it's hard to do. It's hard to learn, and it's a lot harder than inline skates. And I thought to
Really?
myself like, "Hmm, I don't wanna do it, but I'm gonna try it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna do it." And I remember, I kid you not, the first time that I got on roller skates was I was actually at one of the or high altitude roller derbies practice, so that was the team that I joined and who I still call my family till this day. And I remember they were practicing and I was on the side learning how to roll, just roll back and forth and do like little crazy eights. And I kept falling and I wish someone had recorded me during that time, but this was, like, back in 2015 when it's like, "Hey,
Yep.
let's start recording people," you know?
Mhm.
And I remember, like, from there on out, I figured that roller skating was gonna be a part of my life. I just kinda dawned on me at that moment, but I was like, "I don't know how, but I know that this is gonna be a part of me." I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you still inline skate?
Um, I haven't done it, like, not since 2018. I went inline skating back, when I lived in around the Grand Tetons in, Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, and I used to go and take my husky out, and we would go, and I remember I used to just skate along the road, and I remember I ate shit so bad one time, and considering inlines are a lot faster than roller skates, and a lot of the inline skaters on social media always tell me this, and I remember just eating shit so bad, and I hit the front part of my helmet, and it like skid pretty far for a while on the road. And my dog, Mika, just comes over to me and starts licking my face, and I get up and I'm just dying laughing because in roller derby, I'm used to dying laughing whenever you fall over, right? And people, these tourists were just going by, they would stop and then they would get out and say, or freaking out, like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm just laughing. I'm like, "I'm fine. Why are you out of your car? I'm good." Like, don't freak out. I'm fine. So I had some pretty gnarly scratches and bruises after that one. I'm like, oh, that was great.
Man, I don't know if you can see, but behind me, I
I
have some
did.
roller skates.
Yes, they're
And then I
beautiful.
also have some inline skates things. I've only worn those roller skates like twice. I'm not gonna lie. I bought them a couple years ago. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get back
Nice.
into like roller skating. But inline skates, on the other hand,
Love it.
that's my jam right there.
Yes. You got
So
some nice ones too, those wheels.
thank you. But you know what? I'm gonna go out there, you know.
Mhm.
Just speaking of you, I'm gonna go out there and dust these off and give them a
If
spin.
just skating in place, yeah. Because for me,
Right.
I try to do the skating in place, and it drives me nuts. I don't know if it's just a part of my ADHD or something like that, where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't just stand in one place and just do like the same thing over and over again. I gotta go out and, see the trees. I gotta go see,
Yeah.
like different people hanging around or something. It's like I need a different scenery in skating, like skating in a certain distance and
Yeah.
getting a workout in.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I feel too. I
Mhm.
like, let's go. Let's go places. Let's see things. I like to explore. So whether
Yep.
it's on my bike, just walking, skates, let's go.
Yep.
You know. So maybe I'll take them outside, and maybe I'll take them to a roller skating rink and see, but
Heck yeah,
it's the
man.
inline skates for me. It's the inline skates for me.
Yes. Do it up, man.
So you mentioned, okay, that you've done like 100-mile skates plus 100-mile plus skate tours, right? Do you call them tours? I guess.
This is the first tour that I've actually called a tour,
Oh, so
which is
this is
this
okay.
July.
This is the
Yeah.
first one.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the first. But prior to that, you've done other long distance or ultra skates.
Mhm.
What were those like in preparation for those, and how many have you done? Um, to I guess lead up to this big one. Like you've done, say, you did four, and then you're like, you know what? Now I'm just gonna do the granddaddy of them all and say,
Yeah. I've done a few, and the one that really sticks with me, there's actually a couple that stick with me. Well, the first one I ever did was before the skate on the Navajo Nation, and that was to raise awareness for the children, Indigenous children that were found on the residential boarding schools in Canada, in Kamloops, Canada. And they, their bodies were discovered, and they were never returned to their families.
Mm.
So I did a skate for that, and I wanted to skate 60 miles that day. And this was without preparation. This was without training. I didn't know anything about nutrition at this time. I just went out and just like, I can do it. I can skate this far. And I got beat up pretty bad, and it was to the point where I could not even move my entire body for a couple days. And that was mainly because I didn't know my nutrition and what my body needed. And then I kind of learned a little bit more from that. And then the one after the Navajo Nation, this one really, really sticks with me. And this is one where uh, did a roller skate on the Centennial Trail. And it was the same trail where I did my first one ever. And it just decided to rain that entire day. And it's, in Washington State. So, of course, it's going to rain. You can't, yeah, if you get sunshine, you're lucky. But this one, I did it with another inline skater, and I didn't know who he was. And shout out to Walker. Walker, he came from, oh man, Olympia. Yes, it was Olympia. He came up from, and he skated with me the entire way. And we had some runners, some trail runners. I call them ultra trail runners because they are. And it was a history teacher from Lakewood and my fiance, Nate. Those two are actually best friends. And a track coach and his wife that came out. And the history teacher, as well as my fiance, well, actually, the history teacher ran like 30 miles in pure rain. And I don't know how many times I kept having to change. And every time I had to change, I had to do it in a porta potty. That is the hardest thing to do on skates, especially when you don't want to take off your skates when they're molded to your foot. And so I remember at the end of that skate, like I wanted to at least finish up 40 miles because that was my goal. And it was about, actually, no, we wanted to finish up 50, but we completed 40. So at 40, we took a break. Actually, it was like maybe 38 or 39 miles. And we took a break. And Nate, my fiance, after he ran like his portion, he jumped onto his bike, but he wasn't getting a lot of movement. So he wasn't warming up. So I remember sitting there and thinking like, I got to finish this 50. I got to do this. And Native Hope was there. They were the ones who were phenomenal had been phenomenal in doing a lot of great things with me and partnering up with me and doing a lot of outreach. So actually, in promoting what I do. So they were there videoing everything and documenting everything. And one of them had to tell me to my face, you need to stop because you guys are going to get sick and you're about to get hypothermia. Because I was shivering. I was shaking so bad. And I looked over to my fiance and he was just like bent over. His head was just down and he was just shivering. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I looked over at Walker. Walker, probably out of all of us, was the one who was really like well equipped. And he had the rain jacket. He had like everything. And he was just standing there like, I'm good. And I was like, dude, are you sure? He's like, I'm tired, but I'm good. And I'm like, okay. So when everybody's exhausted, when everybody doesn't talk anymore. So that's where we were at.
Silence.
Yes, complete silence. And I kid you not, I was so freaking excited when I had to tell myself like to call it for my team. And I was so excited when I saw Nate, my fiance's mom, on the side where we were going to call it. And she had cups of hot tea ready for us. And she got it for the entire, like for Walker, myself, and for my fiance. And I just grabbed it and I was like, oh my God. And after that, we all looked at each other. We're like, that's okay. We didn't finish what we wanted, but we did bring the awareness. This was an awareness for MMIP still. And like I was like, have you heard anyone actually ever complete something like this in 8.5 hours of pure rain, roller skated for about 40 miles straight the entire day in pure rain? And I remember talking to Walker and he's like, I don't think anybody has ever done that before. I think we might have been the first. I'm like, well, unless somebody, direct message me on Instagram and tells me, hey, I actually did this many miles in rain. I'm like, okay, let's talk. So
wow,
that was intense. That one will always stay with me. And the next one was the Yakima MMIP commemorative skate. And I did this with skateboarders. And it was so powerful. Like when I think about it now, I get chills. Because when we all met up at the parking lot before we were going to go skate, and this was on the Centennial Trail again, and a bunch of skaters, like skateboarders from South Dakota came up, Texas, Oregon, all over, like Washington. I was like, Oh, and another one came down from Canada. I was just so amazed with these skateboarders. And first of all, they're freaking fast. And I had to keep up with these guys. I was dying. And the more that I was dying, the more that my ass was getting kicked pretty bad.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of videos that I post up where we're skating, like there's a group of skateboarders. I really freaking loved these young youth, indigenous youth that came from South Dakota, and they drove for, I think, like a day or two. And they showed up and they looked so freaking cool. I wish we took a group photo. I don't know why we did not take a group photo before then. But they had, from, in my Dene background, basically, like my traditions, is the medicine man who's like a shaman for other tribes who recognize that. They wear like this handkerchief around their head. And I saw these young kids, they're not Dene, I don't believe they're Dene, but they wore a handkerchief around their head and their hair was just flowing down. And they had the red handprint on their face. And they were just
Wow.
these native young kids on their skateboards. I was like, oh my God. And so to see that, and what we did was, so Al Copas, shout out to him, he was the leader of this, basically. I don't know why I say leader, kind of sounds like a leader where just, he was like the lead individual of this event. And he carried these stakes on his back, and he had the red handprint on his face and on his chest. And every single mile we would hammer in a stake. And on that stake, it had a flag on it, and it had the name of a victim where they were murdered or either missing or both. And we would do a prayer and offer tobacco. So every single mile we did this. And I only reached about like 34 before I like tapped out. This day was really hard. And I'm going to get down and dirty a little bit about this because I want to also bring, forward the wellness of it. For women who, go through their menstrual cycle, it's a real thing. When during that day, it just landed on that day. It was just, yeah, just
so
happened.
sorry.
And I was like, oh man, I was hoping you would come until the weekend, but okay, let's do this.
Right.
And nope. And
Oh,
after that, like I started to feel it. My mind was like, you can keep going, you can keep going. My body is like, no, you're not, you're done. And my body was just cramping up so bad. I had this crazy migraine to the point where after the skate, my fiance almost admitted me into the emergency department because of how bad the migraine was. And, I'm going to say it's a lot of this, I'm 36 and going through a perimenopause. And it's one thing I was able to talk about, openly on my social media page. And I didn't know that there was going to be a huge response to it, but many women across the entire world were messaging me and commenting about, hey, thank you for talking about this because no one really talks about this. And it's a real thing. Like we don't get, people basically tell us to suck it up. I'm like, I know.
Right.
I feel like, and we have that mentality too, where we're like, we have to suck it up. And that's what I was telling myself on that skate that day, until my fiance is like, you gotta stop, stop it. And so that one was a very powerful one. And I was so thankful to do it with skateboarders because I feel like the skating world gets a bad rap and is overlooked easily. And I feel the skating community, the skating world coming about and just coming together to bring something like this, an awareness to something like this of MMIP, something that continues to be silenced. And it's just so powerful. I freaking love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, as you were describing it, you said you were getting chills. I was getting chills. I was like, oh gosh, I could just picture it.
Yeah.
So, wow. Dang.
Yeah. definitely some skates that I'll never forget. And
Yeah.
when people do tell me, or I can say, the responses that I'm getting and of roller skating across the nation is not what I expect. And I just don't think people understand what you're putting your body through and
Right.
what you are trying to do and to bring your mission and message forward about this. And people ask like, what, how is this supposed to bring awareness? And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, health, wellness, and healing. This is my way, my healing journey, but I also want to inspire others. Um, like mine was roller skating. And again, my roller skates have a story to tell, and that is they saved my life.
Hmm.
And I want to bring that forward, whatever it is, like you mentioned, whatever it is that people have to help them out with their own healing journey or to start it, you know? And I feel like people don't, they kind of see this as something that is not taken seriously of, oh, you're
Hmm.
doing it through with roller skates, again, that's kind of going back to like, it's kind of overlooked. People don't really see it as like a sport. And I want to change that. That is my
Hmm.
goal, is to change that, especially with roller derby as well. And I feel like inline skates, yeah, they such a phenomenal sport to where they now have speed skating in the Olympics. I'm
Yep.
like, all right, let's get some roller skating in there. What about that? And I want to just change that whole world of skating and to say, yeah, here is a Danette Navajo woman coming in, and she's going to roller skate across the country to make sure that this message is getting out there about roller skating and of an ongoing epidemic of MMIP.
That is great. I think people, and I agree with you about, people not taking roller skating seriously, inline skating. I think they think it's childish, you know?
Yep.
Um, but it's not. A
Mhm.
lot of people, I last year I participated in the BMW, the Berlin Marathon, BMW inline skate marathon, and thousands of skaters were there. And I'm like, wow. And every time I told somebody I was going out there for that, they was like, they have that? That's a thing? I'm here in New York and we have the New York Inline Skating Marathon. I went to Duluth for the North Shore Inline Skate Marathon. Like it's here. Like,
You were there?
it's I was there 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna be there this year. Are you gonna be there?
Oh, I no. I think I'm gonna do I think that's the same. Is it the same weekend as the New York City one? I don't know.
Maybe. I know there's a lot going on that time.
Yeah, I'm going to Florida though. I'm going to do the Florida Inline
Oh,
Skate
I
Marathon.
want to do that one. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's, like you said, I think people think it's kind of childish,
Hmm.
but it's not, and I do it. I do that. I cycle. Um, and these activities are my therapy. They're part of my wellness, health and wellness. This is what I do.
Yes.
I'm feeling it some type of way. Let me get on my bike. Uh, you know, let me kind of clear my head. Let me
Mm,
skate. Let me explore. I don't feel as down as I was before I got on my skates. I'm feeling pretty good now,
I can, man. Love that feeling.
so, so I totally understand that. And it's great what you're doing through roller skating. Like you're bringing awareness. And to me, like if I was to see you, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what were you doing? And then you would tell me about your calls, and then I'm like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy in a good way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And how can I be a part of this? How can I support? And all this. And you're right. People don't. It's very taxing, right?
Hmm.
Very taxing on your body when you're skating that long for so long. Like you're not even properly resting. So okay, so July, the Great Skate Tour.
Yes. Hmm.
How many Washington State to Washington D.C.?
I know.
How many how many miles is that? How long do you think that's going to take you? And are you going to camp? Are you going to stay with family and friends? Are you going to stay in a hotel? Are you going to have like a SAG vehicle with you? I have so many questions.
Oh, no, they're great questions for sure. And um, so yes, the Great Skate Tour is, we're starting and going to start, I believe it's going to be, well, we're actually looking in mid-July. So my fiance's birthday is on the 12th on a Friday, and I want to make sure that we have us time before it gets all
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so we want to start the week of the 15th of July. And that weekend, actually, first, you back up. The first week we'll be starting at the Centennial Trail here in Washington State. And then going for probably that entire week, and then making our way down towards Ellensburg. I'm still learning the areas in Washington, so no Washingtonians yell at me. And the 20th, we'll be down in Ellensburg, and we will be the cool thing about this local area is the community is coming together to put together an event and to hold a fundraiser at one of their breweries. So it's going to be the Iron Horse Brewery. I believe that's what it was called. And then before that, they're going to try to put like a parade-like event together. And then afterwards, we're going to skate about 30-ish miles on one of the roads nearby. So then we're going to make our way up to Colville because Colville Reservation, they're amazing. I've done a speaking event with them just last year, and since then we've just become family. And so I asked them if we can do something cool or fun, bring the youth out and do a skating event. And then making our way to Idaho and skating around like the Coeur d'Alene area and moving our way down. Actually, we want to go towards Montana because I want to make sure, because Montana is and has cases there that I have been following for a long time. And that is one of the areas where a lot of missing and murdered Indigenous women cases are, like a lot of them are. And I want to go around that area in Montana. And it's actually where Lily Gladstone is from. And make our way down to Wyoming and skate at the Grand Teton National Park, which is where I started trail skating and fell in love with it. So that's going to be a special place. And we want to go down towards Colorado because we've been getting so much like individuals from Colorado asking us to come there and skate. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And then moving our way kind of up towards South Dakota, South Dakota area, and then up towards kind of making sure that we hit Duluth, Minnesota around September to be there in time for for the North Shore Inline Skate Fest. And then just continuing on until we get to DC. So it is pretty nerve-wracking. What's kind of nerve-wracking for us is the fact of this is going to be a 2 to 3 month skate. And I need to make sure that, of course, I take care of myself. I will be taking breaks on the time that I am going to be on my menstrual cycle. So it has to be done. And then the financial assistance, because it's really hard to do it. And I feel like a lot of people have come at me saying, like, you're asking for way too much. You're asking for too much. And I'm like, no, this is literally how much, this is out of our own pocket. And we are asking for help from anyone and everyone around the entire world to just pitch in even $1. And the thing about this too is about 25. Sorry, my Melanie is crying in the background. He's being so needy today because my fiance's gone for the weekend. So about 50% to about 70% of the proceeds will be going to an Indigenous nonprofit organization. And the rest is going to be going to us. So we're only taking a small percentage of those donations and using it for our personal needs, because our dogs will be coming with us. And I've had people like say, why are they coming with you? I'm like, well, because they're our children.
Yeah.
Can you just board them? I'm like, oh, hell no. And they're a part of our journey. They were on the documentary that I was in, a couple of years ago. Food, we need supplies, we need water, dog food for our dogs as well. So it has been nonstop trying to get in touch with different organizations and businesses to make sure that, okay, hey, like, can we get a little bit of assistance on this? Of course, there's those rejections or ghosting, stuff like that. That's kind of the discouraging part. And sometimes, like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, I just want to give up because I feel like people are not wanting to do it. But I'm like, no, I need to stick to why I'm doing this in the first place. I need to make sure and remind myself what my mission is and stick to it. So I've been declined by a lot of surprising companies that I thought would actually help. Declined. There's actually been some actresses that I have reached out to who are very, very supportive and want to also share, you know, what I'm doing. So it's just that whole part is we are trying to get donations for our supplies, our tools. I'm taking my personal truck, and by the time we get back from this Great Skate Tour in October, it's probably not usable anymore. So that's how much we are scrounging just to do whatever we can with whatever we got and use whatever, like, for however long. I don't know if my truck's gonna break down on the way or what, but we're just asking for donations and trying to not let that overcome everything. But I'm also very picky about the Indigenous nonprofit organization. I've had my fair share of not great ones in the past. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I need to make sure that I do my research. I need to make sure, like, okay, they need money for their program. They need money to hire more staff for whatever, or they're using the money. Basically, they are going to use the money properly. And they're going to use it for their mission. And usually I would like for their mission to also pertain to missing and murdered Indigenous persons. So I've become very strict on that. And I know some people have come to me saying, like, how come you haven't partnered with one yet? I'm like, first of all, chill out. Second of all, I'm just one person doing all of this. Doing the best that I can. Stop yelling at me. So yeah, it's just a lot of work that comes into it, and it's basically my team right now, which is my fiance and I. And he still has to work. I still have to work. I'll be teleworking during the time that we're doing the Great Skate Tour because my boss right now is really cool. So getting the nutrition and food that we need during the skate, it's a lot. People don't realize how, like, what the work that you have to put into this. And I just want to make sure too, like, the people that come out, I want to make sure that I'm, being there with them in person and saying, and finally meeting these individuals finally, and putting a face to the, Instagram profile picture and saying, hi, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. Yeah. But this is also seen too as a ceremony, because the red handprint, I know I've gotten this question a lot. People ask, can anybody wear it? So the thing with this is I see it as a ceremony. Every time I wear this handprint, I get so exhausted, very, very exhausted. This might not be for a lot of people, but for the, Indigenous and Native people, they understand that this is a part of our traditions of the red handprint, which the spiritual world can see. Those who are lost, especially those who are murdered and are trying to find their way home in the spiritual world, they don't have that guidance. They're lost. So they see this person who has the red handprint on their face. And usually in a lot of tribes, the red handprint means and signifies a warrior. So these spirits can see that. And then they follow and they say, okay, I can finally go home. So the way that one of my cousins put it, who's actually in the documentary for the 192-mile skate, was that this is like a ceremony, and that's why you're so tired. It's because you're taking on all of this, and you're bringing healing to the land. You're bringing healing to the people. He's like, so you got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure you're there for yourself too. I'm like, okay. So I think that's one thing that I have to make known during this tour as well. And I am talking a lot. I just love this, you know?
Well, okay. No. Dang it, I just forgot what I was gonna say. Okay. Wait, let me ask another question then. Okay, so how many miles total is the whole journey?
We're looking about 3,000 miles. The tour in itself, I call it a tour just because we're going to be visiting different areas.
Yeah.
So I know some people are like, oh, you're going to be going nonstop. I'm like, no, I'm actually going to be roller skating from one section to the next. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, yes, it's about roller skating, but it's mainly about my mission to bring awareness to MMIP. And that even includes talking to people pulling me off on the side and literally talking to me for hours. And, I don't want to just push them away and say, I got to finish this skate, like get out of my way. No, like a part of this is advocating and hearing people and listening to them and listening to their stories. So that's why I call it the tour, is just visiting different sections in each state. Yeah.
And will you be staying in those areas like overnight during the tour?
Yeah. So our plan is to basically camp. It'd be so much easier if we had an RV, but it is what it is. Yeah, so we'll be camping anywhere that we can find a little spot for us, our little family. And some people have asked to host us, which has been great. And I always make sure that they're able to take in 2 big wolf-like fluffy dogs, and they're like, "Oh, yes, please." I'm like, "Okay, thank you. You guys are now our best friends."
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
So I assume your fiance is gonna drive your truck while you skate?
Yeah, usually he'll bike with me and someone is
Okay.
driving,
Someone
but
else is okay.
yeah, so if it's just the both of us, then excuse me, whoa, I just burped so loud. I couldn't
I didn't hear
control
you,
it.
so you're good.
So he's gonna be driving and probably just, driving beside me or in front of me. Um, a lot of the roller derby teams across the nation have reached out and said, we want to be there with you in a group to make sure you get there safely. I'm like,
Great.
I freaking love the roller derby community. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
Great.
they're family.
Um, this was the question I was gonna ask you. Are you going to document this?
Yeah. So we haven't had any individuals like Brute. So Brute was a film crew that came out from New York for 119-mile skate. We haven't had anybody asked to document the entire thing, because who wants to document for like 2 to 3 months straight, right? um, so we literally, right, we are just documenting right now with our phones and with my Nikon camera. And I'm literally just been documenting since last year, trying to as much as possible. And I'm literally putting in like the struggles and everything that I'm going through, because I want to be real about this. I want to be real. I don't want to just be like, oh, I'm some skater just gonna, do this intense thing and I'm gonna make it look like it's easy. I'm like, no,
Right.
I need to be real. Yeah. So no,
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
seen.
have one yet.
Yeah, I've
I wish I
seen some of
did.
your videos on Instagram, and it's like the real. You preparing. It's like
Thank you.
wow. It's gonna be challenging, but it's gonna be so rewarding because what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you.
And welcome. Hopefully, someone out there will reach out and say, "Hey, we want to document this whole thing for you." And we want to
Okay.
give you a little bit of money. We got to speak it into existence, right?
Oh,
Come
that'd be
on
great.
now. There's a lot of companies out here,
Mhm.
you know,
That would be phenomenal. I've been asking around and just I'm getting used to the rejection button. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, but I've donated. I'm gonna donate some more.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And because when I saw it immediately, and I reposted on my page, I was like, oh man, we donate. Because I know the, um, I know what you're doing it for, you know,
You.
and it's, I just think we should bring awareness to it.
Mhm.
And um, I don't, I don't hear much about indigenous people, right? When people go missing,
Mhm.
you know who it usually is that's broadcast on television.
Right.
Um, and
You don't
I
hear it a
know other
lot.
people go missing.
Right? And
I know a lot of people go.
it was a stir up too where, Gabby Petito, she went missing and that
Yeah.
became global
Yeah.
news. But the thing with me is, I have a long history of, working in victim assistance. I would
Mhm.
never wish anything like that
No.
to happen on anyone of what happened to her.
When
But the thing is,
mhm.
who her parents knew, the right contacts that they had. But still, it comes down to race on this one. And we have a lot of cases, a lot of cold cases right now of missing and murdered Indigenous
Mm.
persons from elders, men, of course, women and children, Two Spirit, LGBTQ, and there there's no focus on them. There's no talk about them. And I kid you not, I was just looking at my documentary that I was, talking about, and there's not a lot of views on it. And then I looked at another case that this film crew did about a victim who was sexually assaulted. There's not a lot of views on it, and she's a Latina woman. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking like, "Okay, let me see the ones that are getting viewed a little bit more," and it's stuff that like J Lo or Taylor Swift or something. I'm like, "Come on." Like, we are not giving attention to what needs to be focused on or to be talked
Mhm.
about. And I feel like of course, since the first colonizer came and stepped foot onto this land, it just a lot of shit happened, and then it's like a ripple effect throughout the entire geographical time, right? To put it you know, to say the least, that it's so hard to see it still happening within, systemic genocide or just how it's seen within the national policymakers. It's being ignored by the media and
Yeah.
even in the criminal justice system. Washington State, I have to say, is doing pretty good about making sure that, they have an MMIWP task force and then adding on to that.
Mhm.
There's other states like New Mexico who have their task force as well, and there's other states that are kind of catching on. And it's just it's hard to see these cases continuously being ignored and not talked about. And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's kind of why I wanted to do the Great Skate Tour was because all of these cases, even with what happened with Cole Brings Plenty, this recent case. And if nobody knows about what happened to Cole Brings Plenty, please Google because it's a really, really messed up case.
Mhm.
And he lost his life, and they're they're ruling it as no foul play on this case. But the thing is, he was found in the woods where his sister was found as well. His sister was killed 6 months ago, and then now he was murdered. People were saying like,
Right.
"Oh, he wasn't murdered." I'm like, let's look at the case here. Like, come on, let's do a better, thorough investigation on this case. This is an MMIP case. Come on.
Mhm.
That's how these cases are being ruled out. Cases
Mm.
in Hardin, Montana, they're being ruled out as these young women. Oh, they went out to a party.
Yeah.
They got drunk, and then look what happened. And so they rule out in these cases, like for example, gosh, there's a couple of them in Hardin, Montana, where they ruled the coroner ruled it as hypothermia. Was it hypothermia?
Mm.
Yeah, it was just a really, really stupid outcome of, like, how they saw these cases, and there was no thorough investigation on these cases. They were kinda just thrown out, or they become a cold case. So they're just left to
Mm.
sit, you know, and nobody's doing anything about it. So I I look at these cases and, given the fact that my family I had a cousin who went missing, and then we later
Mm.
found that she was murdered in Oklahoma. My family
Oh,
told me we
no.
can never talk about it, and so I wanna talk about it. I don't know
Right.
her name. I'm really upset that I don't know her name, and my family is just kind of like, "No, let's just leave it, don't talk about it." And I think that kinda stems from if we talk about it, we're gonna get abused or we're gonna get hit hard by, individuals that they're used to being hit hard with, or how should I say it? Ah, I think too, it kinda goes along with they don't what happened to them in the boarding schools is if they ever came forward and had a voice, they
Mhm.
were abused. And I feel like that kinda just is like a ripple effect to happen to the next generation, like, "Don't say anything because I wanna keep you safe. We don't
Yeah.
want that to happen, to
Mhm.
you or to
Mhm.
anybody else." So it's like, "Okay, you don't talk about it." And it hurts to see that, and it hurts to understand that, my cousin I don't know anything of what happened really to her other than the fact that she was murdered and possibly shot in the head. And I wanna be able to spread more awareness of, like, how this is an example of thousands of cases out there that are not being taken seriously. I can go
Right.
on and on about this. Sorry, I get really passionate about it.
No, no,
Oh,
I'm so sorry to hear that about your cousin that happened, and you're right. If we don't talk about it, no one else is. There's this, I don't know if you there's this organization, I think it's called Black and Missing, and they post missing black people because if they don't post it,
mhm.
you- you- it's
That's
not getting any media coverage.
well,
And it's just so sad. Like if they don't do it and other organizations don't post and don't bring awareness to this,
yeah,
we won't know until it happens to us directly or someone close to us. And I see that happening too, where it's like, well, I don't know that person.
yeah,
With the day and age that we're in, oh, I don't know that person. Well, this could be your sister. This could be your brother. This could
mhm,
be, your best friend. And we shouldn't look at it like I don't know that person,
right,
or it has nothing to do with me. Um, it does because it could affect us. It could hit home,
mhm,
like you spoke about your cousin. And it's just it's sad. But
yeah,
I'm glad for organizations like that and for what you're doing, your tour, to bring awareness, because
yeah,
if, you don't do it, they don't do it,
mhm, yeah.
it's just gonna, you know
I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll just be that cray cray person that's gonna roller skate across the entire nation to speak up about it."
right,
What's
listen.
it gonna take? What's it gonna
It,
take?
listen,
Yeah.
listen. Wow. Maybe I'll try to come to DC because like I said, I'm
Yes.
in New York, so maybe
Mhm.
I'll try. I'll keep track of where you are. Like, okay,
Yes.
all right, they're gonna be in DC, and
Yeah.
this time
And
in
I do have
October. So
I set it or just recently set up a private message group, um, for those who wanna be kept up to date with the exact location where we'll
okay,
be at, just for safety purposes, because
yes,
let's be honest, this topic is not very fond of across certain areas in the US. And I definitely wanna keep my team safe, the people who are coming out safe. So I definitely just wanna share it with those individuals in the private group. So yeah, let me know, and I am happy to send you the information.
all right, all right. That's what's up. Before we wrap up, are there any parting words? How can people find you and support you? All that jazz.
Yeah. I You guys definitely I know a lot of people have social media. If you don't, then wow, you're great and amazing. You can find me, On Instagram, it's at Skeet_fighter. You can find me on Facebook. It's just Skeet Fighter. And TikTok, which is at Skeet_fighter. And I do have an email address, which is just melissa.skeetfighter@gmail.com if you need to reach out via email. There is a donation link, which is through the GoFundMe link. You can find that on all of my social media platforms in the bio section. So if anybody has any questions, please let me know. And I'm really happy to either partner up or if you want to skate with us, either skateboarding, roller skating, inline skating, walking, running, anything to get you out in the outdoors and to just have a great conversation while we're skating or rolling on the nice hot pavement. And yes, I have heard people say, you're doing this in the middle of the summer. You are so crazy. I'm like, so, I don't know. I do, I guess. Bring that sunscreen.
Thank you, right?
This is tough.
Oh, yeah, and hydrate.
Mhm.
Make sure you
Bring that nutrition. Electrolytes, that's my jam.
Exactly. I will be following along.
Thank you. Awesome.
Instagram. I'll be looking. I'm like, oh, where are they now? Oh, look at this. Great. Oh, man.
I can't wait. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I'm anxious and scared all at once. So
Right.
It's great feelings.
I can imagine that. Yes. But you'll be fine. You'll be good. Yeah. But thank you again for being a guest. I really appreciate it. Like I said,
you,
I
Tay.
will be donating. Welcome. I'll be donating again, and I'm getting that coloring book.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to order that coloring book.
Yes.
Like, all right. The inspiration for the coloring book, what was it?
Oh, man. People gave me so much shit for this when they I used to work with some special agents, and they used to be like, what the heck, man? Why did you call it roller skate and tea? I'm like, because I love tea, and people like coffee, like drinkers are such haters against tea drinkers. And they're like, oh, so you're being spiteful, huh? I'm like, what? No, I just want to, I just love the fact of I drink tea. So this is my tea cup, and this is Husky Mom, and I love jasmine green tea. I kid you not, I've tried drinking coffee, and to me, it just tastes like dirt water. It's just, yeah, I can't. If you see me drinking coffee, it's because I am so desperate. Either one, I am out of tea. Two, I just need some sort of like major caffeine to just pick me up because I am just about to fall over and pass out because I'm so exhausted. So I wanted to create something that was very, very kind of me, but also maybe resonates or kind of like, I don't know, some people might actually gravitate towards and be like, yeah, that's me too. And it's very quirky. And that's just my personality. I'm very quirky and weird at times. And I don't care what anyone says. I am that person.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yes. And I just made this roller skate in tea volume 1 coloring book. Proceeds from that help us out with the Great Skate Tour. Also, I will be posting videos on my now new YouTube channel of the Great Skate Tour, and it's kind of going to be about, I guess, my own documentary of my fiance and I of what we're going through as a team, but just everything that everybody would want to know about what goes into creating and doing something like this. So follow along. It's again at Skeet Fighter.
All right, I'm gonna subscribe.
Yes,
I'm subscribing right after this. Subscribe.
Yay!
Well, thank you again for being a guest, and I really appreciate it. Best of luck and all the good vibes on the tour, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see you in October when you make it to DC.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
thank you.
Good luck at the North Shore Inline Skate Marathon.
Thanks. I'm excited.
And you've done it before?
I have, yeah, last year, and I
okay.
Definitely know a lot of the inline skaters are no joke on this one, so I'm like, maybe I can try really hardcore this time and actually try to beat some of them. We'll
You
see.
got it. You can. You can. I
Yeah.
believe in you. I believe in you.
Thanks.
This is the Rolling with Tay podcast. I'm your host, Tasia, aka Tay. Thanks for listening and watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.